Hi guys, welcome to today's tutorial. In today's video, we are going to learn how to add names to your resin pieces. So for today's tutorial, we are going to be using 3:1 resin. So this is the part A and this is the part B. Next, we are also going to need some silicone cups in different sizes. We'll be needing the multiple cavity mold, some mixing sticks for stirring. For today's project, we'll be using some white mica powder. The next item we'll be using will be the gloves, some disposable gloves. You also always have to have beside you some wet wipes for wiping any spillage or anything of that sort. So we're going to start off by putting on the gloves we are going to be using for the project. So this is the cup we are going to be using to do the measurement. So these silicone cups come with inscriptions in milliliters that you can use for your measurement. And since this is a 3:1 mix ratio, we'll be pouring 30 ml of resin. And when we divide 30 by 3, we're going to get 10. Okay, so after pouring the 30 ml of resin, we are going to pour only 10 ml of hardener to complete the ratio. So this cup here, as I said, is a silicone cup which comes with the inscriptions. This is a 50 ml cup, meaning the maximum quantity it can take is 50 ml of resin, whether it's just resin or just hardener, but I can only take 50 ml. And since for today's project I don't need a lot of resin, I'm selecting this cup, this specific cup, because it's going to make it very easy for me to work with. So after pouring in the 30 ml of resin, I'm going to cover that up and then move on to the hardener. So in this situation, or in this scenario, the bottles don't have the same size of covers. So that means there's not going to be any mix up where you are going to mistakenly cover the resin with the cup of the hardener. But in case you do get your resin in a bottle or in a packaging where the covers can actually cover either of them, be sure not to mix them up. So you realize that when the resin reacts with the hardener, it cures and forms a solid piece or a solid plastic. And then when it forms a solid plastic, it becomes some sort of adhesive. So if you mistakenly swap the covers of the resin, meaning you put the cover of the resin on the hardener and the other way around, it's going to cure, and eventually after maybe some time when you come, you can't open the cover again. So always be sure not to swap the covers. So I did most of the mixing off camera so as not to waste any time, but always remember to give it a good 8 to 10 minutes mix before you can work with it. So with the wet wipes, I'm just giving the molds a very neat clean before we move on with the project. So you can see from afar, you can't really see that there's filth in it. These molds collect a lot of dust. So anytime you're about to work on any project, please do well to use your wet wipes to clean them up. So because I wasn't going to use most of the or all of the resin on this project, I poured an initial quantity into the cup. So here I'm going to scoop a decent amount of the mica powder into the cup I'm going to be using, or into the resin I'm going to be using for today's project. So whenever you want to add a name to your resin piece, you should also, I hope you have already watched the previous tutorial on doming. Good. So we are going to apply the knowledge we used, or the knowledge we acquired from the doming tutorial, whenever we are going to use or add names to your resin piece. And then there are multiple ways of adding names to resin pieces. I'll be covering each and every single one of them in individual tutorials. But for today's tutorial, we are going to be using PVC alphabet stickers, which we are going to do when we are about to dome. So before you can add names to the resin piece, there should be an existing piece. Okay, so that's what we are making here today. We're going to pour the first layer of resin, wait for it to cure before, once it's a solid plastic, we can actually adhere the stickers of the alphabets on top of it to give it the name we are looking out for. So once the mica powder was well mixed into the mixture or into the resin, I'm going to just pour them into the mold and make sure they spread out, or it spreads out very well and covers the entire base of the silicone mold I'm using. So here I realized the quantity was a little less, so I did move on to add a little more of the clear resin just to top it up and then make it sufficient. So as I said, we are going to be applying the knowledge we learned or the skills we acquired from the doming tutorial. So the first layer has to cure. Okay, it has to be a solid plastic before you can add a name to it. So what we are pouring today is not going to be the end of the tutorial. We are going to wait for it to settle or for it to cure after about 24 hours. But normally, when you want to add names to your resin pieces, you don't necessarily have to wait the full curing duration. You can give it about 12 hours. Wait for it to kind of cure a little. Once it's solid enough, then you can add the stickers. So one thing I'm going to realize is that stickers adhere to solid surfaces. So anytime you're working with a sticker or anything, you realize you don't put stickers on the liquid, you put them on solid surfaces, unless of course you have an idea of the effect you're trying to create. Once that was done, I'm just going to use a lighter to just pop all the bubbles on the surface. After which we are going to leave it to sit for about 12 hours before we come back. So after 12 hours, this is how it looks. It's solid and it has cured enough. So here you can realize that the tweezers can actually touch the surface without getting to the bottom of the silicone mold. So these sheets I have here are what we call the PVC alphabet stickers. They come in gold, silver, white, and black, and there's the lowercase and the uppercase. Lowercase being small letters and uppercase being the bigger letters or the capital letters. So here I'm going to be using the gold stickers, and to properly spell out a name, I'm going to start by using the uppercase stickers or the capital letter stickers for the first letters of the name, and after that I'm going to continue with the lowercase or the small letters. So this here, as I said, they come in different sizes, sorry, in different colors: gold, black, white, and silver. And each color comes in either lowercase or uppercase. So on each sticker, it's either you're going to get only lowercase or you're going to get only uppercase. So I'm going to use the tweezers to do the peeling off from the back end of the stickers. Okay. So the tweezers are actually going to help, or the tweezers will actually help us with the positioning of the stickers. So you should actually be very careful with this because it might actually turn or bend or slant. Good. It might actually slant. So with the help of the tweezers, I picked the first letter. I don't know if you can actually guess the name I'm trying to spell here, but you realize it's a sticker. Okay, so once it adheres to the surface, it will not peel easily, but it will peel. Okay, so you try and bend the sheet of the sticker a little bit and let the letters raise a little from the back end, and you use the tweezers to pick it and adhere it to the surface. So I repeated the same process for all the letters I needed to spell out the name I was trying to spell out on the first keychain. So it's not going to be an easy process, especially if you are working on a lot of pieces, but it's actually very cute because here you're going to get at least a handful of colors you can use to give your pieces unique designs or unique inscriptions. So one thing I realized was that the camera actually had stopped recording during the entire process. So I had to go back and peel off the names or the rest of the letters of the first name, but I couldn't do the same for the rest. So I'm going to just leave these two. We'll proceed with the first name, and then I'll show you another method with the second name. So I don't know if you can already tell, but the name I'm spelling out is Princess. Okay, so I'm spelling out Princess for the first keychain. So when you adhere to the surface with the tweezers, If it is not as straight as you want it to be, you can just readjust it like I'm doing with the C. Okay, you can readjust it before you proceed to the next letter. So you have to try as much as possible to get it on a straight line. It looks more presentable that way. So you have to just try and get it on a straight line. So one may ask that how is it possible, or how will you be able to know whether the name you want to spell will actually fit on the keychain or the piece you are trying to customize? So at times some names are actually very long. A name like Wilhelmina could have been a problem on the size. Colt have been a problem on the size. So in situations like that, it's advisable you start from the last letter or from the middle one. So on the second one, I'm using the middle spelling method. I'm going to start placing the stickers down from the middle. So let's say Wilhelmina, you get the middle alphabet, you put it down first, and then you can proceed with either continuing towards the left or towards the right till all the letters of the name you are trying to spell out has been adhered to the surface you are working with. So for this name, I'm just doing mom, and that's all. So once we are done with the names, this is how it's going to look like. It's going to look this cute. It's very simple. We could have actually even left the project here, but I wanted to up it a little bit with some crushed glass or crushed stones. So these colors here, these little things you see here, are what we call crushed stones or crushed glass. They are not glitter. They are actually also a type of resin filling, which is called the crushed glass or crushed stones. They come in different colors, so you can select the color you want to work with based on the idea you're trying to create on the piece. So here I'm going to use these four colors, and then I'm going to work with them on the project. But before that, we are going to mix another layer of resin with hardener that we are going to pour on the surface before we add in the crushed glass. Some people still have an idea, or some people still think that when you are doming, you only need one of the liquids, not both, which is wrong. So I wanted to actually let you see in this tutorial that for the doming process, you are going to need both resin and hardener. And then this time round, you are still going to measure based on the ratio of the product. The ratio of the product, meaning you are not going to use a ratio that you prefer on the resin, but you're going to use the ratio the resin label comes with. So we are still working with the 3:1 mix ratio. So we are going to do the pour accordingly. So we are going to pour 3 parts of the A, or 3 units of the A and 1 unit of the B, mix them all together before we proceed to pour it onto the surface of the pieces we have just made. Now you can clearly see that we have already added names to these keychains, meaning that whatever quantity of resin we are going to pour onto that surface to do the doming, it should have to be a layer of resin that will let us see the design beneath it, meaning we are not going to add any pigments whatsoever to this mix. Because if we do add in pigments, say we add in pink and then we pour it on the surface, we are not going to see the inscriptions below it. We are not going to see the names below it or any other design we'll choose to add to it. Once the resin is mixed, you are now ready to do the doming. Okay, so you realize here I'm not adding any pigment at all to the mixture, and I'm just going to pour it onto the surface of the mold. So you might be asking why I'm not adding the crushed stones or crushed glass to the resin before pouring it out. One reason is that with the crushed glass, sometimes they bleed out some pigments. Okay, they are dyed glass. Okay, so at times when you actually mix it inside the resin, it's going to bleed out the color that was used to dye it. So for instance, the green crushed glass, once you are mixing it in a batch or a layer of clear resin, is going to tint or dye that resin green. So I prefer to initially pour out the quantity I need for whatever I'm doing. After which I'm going to scoop the quantity of crushed glass and then pour it directly on the surface the doming layer has been poured on. Another reason why I prefer that method is that it gives a texture. So normally crushed glass I use because of the texture they give to the resin pieces. Okay, which you will see once this project is very much ready and then it's completed. So with the help of this little scoop or this little spoon here, I'm going to just pour a decent quantity, not too much, on the base of the design and the top of the design as well. So that's what I'm going to do for each and every single color till I achieve the design I'm looking out for. So don't let the scale or the kind of speed I kind of use for this project deceive you. This is a very, very stressful stage. And if you don't have enough patience, I'm sure you're going to just skip it and maybe move on with glitter. So you should have a lot of patience generally with resin arts. You should be a very, very patient person. You should welcome stress. You should welcome a lot of things just to be able to create the best pieces you could ever think of. So with the help of this little scoop, I was able to arrange the crash glass in the corners in which I wanted them to be. And that's it for the doming layer. Next, I wiped the tweezers I used with my wet wipes and waited for the resin to cure before I would move on to the demolding. So after 24 hours, they had fully cured and this is what we are working with. The crushed glass gave us the texture we were looking for, the touch to feel rough edge we were looking for or rough surface we were looking for on the sides where they were applied. So generally crushed glass are used for this kind of effect. You can actually even just let it sink and don't let it show to give this texture, because if you look closely you would be able to tell that some parts don't actually have that texture because they were not left sitting outside or protruding from the project. So here let's demold each and every single one of them, after which we are going to add the accessories to complete the project. So you realize this is not a very difficult tutorial. It is also very, very easy. So this is how the surface looks for the grain. Even though the texture or there's a rough edge on some of them, you realize that not all of them have that rough edge. So you can use crushed glass without giving the texture. It just depends on the effect you're trying to create in the project. So if you don't want it to show outside it, you just use a little quantity, but make sure it covers enough of the space. So on this project, I'm going to use a drill to drill it. Someone might ask, but O-Celle's crafts, there is a hole in it already. Yes. Personally, I always like creating holes with the drill before adding the screws and so on. Normally, because at times the thickness of the piece you are making will not be able to fit the jump ring, or the jump ring will not be able to go through it easily, or maybe just preference. But for me, you realize the crushed glass have covered that surface already. So trying to drill through is going to give some kind of rough effect on the front, and I don't want to interfere with the design we've already made. So I'm just going to drill it and then add the eye screws. So once the drilling was done, we're going to add the screws into the designs. Okay, we're going to screw them individually. I'll start with my hand, and then when it gets a little tight or a little hard, I can use the pin or any other thing. But I'm not going to use the plier. If not, you can just use your hand. If you feel you can use your hand throughout, that's also fine. So once that was done, I'm going to use the pliers to open up the jump ring, which is going to serve as the connection between the eye screw and then the key ring we are going to use. So once I added the last ring of the key ring to the project, I'm going to use the pliers to close the jump ring up and then just tighten it so that it overlaps and there's no possibility of it opening anytime soon. Okay. So anytime you are working with your jump rings, you always have to let them overlap. Normally, most resin artists just let it meet on the tips and then they just leave it to be. But I prefer to overlap it. That way you are very, very sure that they are well tightened. So once that was all done, this is what we are working with. You can see how easy it was to make these easy pieces. I really hope you did learn a lot from today's tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you already haven't done so. And I really hope you're able to recreate this in your own very amazing and very beautiful way. Hope to see you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.